Yo, what's going on, GameLeap? This is the Jizz and welcome to GameLeap's Top 15 Countdown for patch 12.3 for the top lane. So we're going to be going through the best champions you can pick in the top lane next patch, and of course we'll give you the explanation as to why these champions are the best picks, so make sure you stick around for the whole video. And as always, make sure to check out the GameLeap website in the description or comment section for all your League of Legends needs. We're talking champion courses, guides, high elo VOD analyses that break down what the best players in the world do on your favorite champions so you can become the best player you can be. So check out the website and let's get into the countdown. Now, coming in at number 15 is a champion who did get nerfed recently, and this is Shen, who has really been enjoying Season 12 because of the teleport change that came in 12.1. So the fact that the laning phase, so the first 14 minutes when turret plates are alive, people can only TP to towers. This means that Shen, with his stand united as a global ultimate, he has a presence on the map that very few other champions have, and this is why he still has to be considered next patch as one of the best tops. Even though lots of bruisers and fighters might be getting buffed next patch, Shen can definitely hold his own and still carry games. Now, beating Shen to number 14 on the countdown is a top laner who's actually getting buffed in 12.3, and this is Quinn. So what Riot are doing is giving you more attack speed in the early game for your W, which is what you max first. That's if you're going attack speed crit Quinn, but what they're also doing is improving your ultimate's damage too. But it's kind of interesting here because whenever your ultimate is buffed like this, it really makes sense to go lethality because the damage you deal will be a lot greater. So maxing your W probably won't be worth. It's better in those situations to max your Q. But the thing is, in the top lane, because lots of people are going to be building armor against you, lethality can run out of gas really quickly. So it's probably still better to max your W first and kind of just ignore this ultimate buff. But still, there are two buffs to Quinn, and because again, lots of bruisers and fighters are going to be picked in the top lane, and these are all melee champions, Quinn does so well into these because of her vault, and she's a ranged champion. She's very hard to beat in lane, so she has to be in consideration. But beating Quinn to number 13 on the countdown, this is Trundle. And for Trundle in the top lane next patch, we have a couple of possible options for your mythic item. Because Divine Sundra, even though you're losing 100 HP in the item, you are getting an extra 5 AD, and it's also building out a Caulfield's Warhammer, which is giving you ability haste. And the other option is to go Trinity Force, which is giving you more HP now, but you are losing damage from the threefold strike 80 stacking passive. But you might not even need a mythic item to end the game early because Blade of the Ruined King is also getting buffed. So what's happening is that its price is going up by 100 gold, but the on-hit damage is going up by 2% for melee and ranged champions. So for Trundle in the top lane, lots of champions you go against are going to be building HP. Blade of the Ruined King enables you to completely shred these champions' HP bars, and because it works so well with lethal tempo during the laning phase, you are pretty much unbeatable. So Trundle comes in at number 13, but beating him to number 12 on the countdown is arguably the best lethal tempo abuser in the top lane, and this is Tryndamere. And because lethal tempo is staying as good as it currently is next patch, there's no reason not to put Tryndamere here. Now, it's true, some bruisers and fighters might be improving, but some bruisers and fighters are also getting nerfed because the item changes. Tryndamere, nothing is really affecting you, so you're still going to stay as powerful as you are right now, so 12.3 is still looking pretty juicy. Now, ahead of Tryndamere, we have our second ranged champion of the countdown coming in, and this is Akshan. And even though Akshan and two of his core items, Shield Bow and Wits End, have been nerfed this season, this champion is still too good just because of what he has in his kit, but unfortunately next patch he is getting nerfed. So the movement speed you get from your passive, this is down, and the damage as well in your passive, that 3-stack damage, this is also down by 10 throughout a game. So this is definitely going to impact your damage output and also your mobility. So in the top lane, champions will probably be able to chase you down a little bit more, but it's just the fact that Akshan is Akshan. You still have lots of damage to bully pretty much anyone, and you still have your heroic swing. So top lane might be a little bit scarier next patch, but let's be honest, who on earth wants to play against an Akshan in the top lane? The champion, to be honest, is just unbalanced. But perhaps a ranged champion who's even better than Akshan, this is Cassiopeia coming in at number 10, and the reason Cass is here, even though the new death stance is going to block magic damage, even though more of Malmortius has been buffed, it's just the fact that by the time these champions get these items, so these bruisers and fighters, the lane should already be over. They're not going to get this before the 14-minute mark. By that point, you should have a sizable lead and be able to win the game on your own. But for Cass, she also has a lot going for herself. Archangel Staff is now 2600 gold. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, the same, 2600 gold. And this item is really good in the top lane because it slows these melee champions who want to jump on your head, so it allows you to kite and maintain that space to that opponent, so you can pretty much never get caught out. Now, another AP champion is ahead of Cassiopeia, and we have to consider Gwen, guys, as one of the best top laners because all these bruisers and fighters who are benefiting from the item changes, Gwen does incredibly well into melee champions who she can auto attack and snip. She completely dumpsters them. And when you're running lethal tempo or conqueror, because of the innate attack speed in your E, it's very easy to stack these two keystones and get to max stacks and pretty much never lose a trade. Now, of course, you do have some losing matchups, but just the fact that you're good matchups, these are going to be more popular, and we'll reveal some of these champions very soon. Gwen has to be in this countdown, but the next champion is perhaps a champion who would completely dumpster Gwen, and I mentioned mentioned yesterday in the underrated champions video, the Vayne in the top lane is super underrated, and to be honest, she is, because she's not played nearly enough for how busted she is up there. And if we think about next patch with the new Blade of the Rune King, so it's costing 3,300 gold, a little bit more expensive, but it's totally worth it because you're getting more on hit damage, which is really why you're building Bork. You're building it to shred these tanker opponents, and in the top lane, this is where these champions reside. So Vayne has to be in this countdown as well, just like Jax coming in at number 7. And just like Vayne and Trundle, the new Blade of the Rune King, Jax mains are going to be frothing this, and you also have the new Divine Sundra giving you more attack damage. Even though you're losing HP, this is totally worth it because you'll be hitting harder, and you will be an absolute powerhouse with these two major items in your inventory. And we should also mention here that Death Stance, not only is it blocking magical damage, but it's also going to be healing based off your bonus AD, no longer your max HP. So even though you might be losing health in Divine Sundra, the extra AD you're getting, this is getting pumped into Death Stance. And we also have other items like more of Malmortius, giving you more attack damage. So Jax is definitely going to be one of the scariest picks in the top lane in 12.3, but maybe not as scary as Kayle. And we're not really talking about the laning phase, we're really talking about scaling out of the laning phase into the late game, because for Kayle, nothing is really changing next patch, which is great. This means Nash's Tooth, Riftmaker, Death Cap. Once you get to your major items, the game is probably going to end very quickly. But she has dropped down since last patch in this countdown just because some champions in the early game are definitely going to be scarier, and during the laning phase as well, so you are going to be a little more vulnerable. But still, if you can navigate your way out of the early laning phase, get to level 6, level 11 without dying too much, you should be able to take over games. But beating Kayle and starting off the top 5 of the top laners for 12.3, guys, this is Aurelia. And can you guess why Aurelia would be on this countdown? Well, we've already talked about the item Blade of the Rune King, and this is exactly why Aurelia has to be in consideration here. And because Death Stance is getting buffed the way it is, this is just going to be so broken on a fighter like Aurelia, because she already has so much innate damage, but she's getting so much more survivability next patch, and she'll be a lot harder to actually kill. And next patch, if you are an Aurelia player, you might even consider going the new Gore Drinker, so it's losing 150 HP, but you're gaining 10 attack damage. And remember that attack damage is going into Death Stance's new healing passive, and of course you'll be hitting harder with your auto attacks and your abilities. So Shield Bow might not even be the best mythic item for you next patch, it might be the new Gore Drinker, so there's lots going for Aurelia in 12.3, just like there's a lot going for Camille coming in at number 4 in this countdown. And for Camille, the extra attack damage from Divine Sundra and it building out a cool field Warhammer now, which is giving you ability heads, really nice because your cooldowns, especially during the laning phase, are quite long. But we also have to consider maybe Camille players building the new Trinity Force, which is giving you 300 HP now, no longer 200, and even though you're losing damage via the threefold strike passive, let's be honest, you're still going to have easily enough damage. And maybe if you pair this with the new Sterex Gauge, because the shield is now scaling off your bonus HP rather than actually how many enemy champions hit you, this could be massive in those 1v1 situations, which is where you really thrive. But coming in at number 3, guys, if you don't like Camille, well, we have another bruiser fighter here who's amazing at 1v1ing, and this of course is Fiora, and you grand duelists out there should be licking your lips at the 12.3 changes. So we've mentioned Gore Drinker, more attack damage, building out a cool field to Warhammer, so in other words, ability haste, which is what Phage doesn't give you. This is just great for your early laning phase. And we also have to consider the new Ravenous Hydra. It's giving you extra attack damage, 5 of it, so it's exactly the same amount of gold, everything else is still there, but you're getting more attack damage. You'll be hitting harder with auto attacks abilities, and then of course we've got the new Death Stance, which is going to be healing you off your bonus AD and blocking magical damage as well. I don't know how you cannot put Fiora in a top 3 for top laners in 12.3 just because of what's happening to her items, and she's already in a strong position. But beating Fiora, a champion who might have something to say about Fiora being in a strong position, is Darius. And the reason Darius is coming in at number 2 is because of the new Trinity Force changes and Sterex Gauge and how these can synergize with one another. So for Darius in recent times, it's never really been about your damage output because you have so much of it innately. It's really been about your survivability and actually being able to stay alive in team fights and those 1v1, 2v2 skirmishes. So for Trinity Force to give you more HP, and even though you're losing damage in the passive, remember Darius has one of the highest base attack damage stats in the entire game. And this is going to be really important for Sterex Gauge's new passive, so you're gaining 40% of your base attack damage as bonus AD. And as soon as you get Sterex Gauge, maybe around level 13, level 14, the new 12.3 Sterex Gauge will actually be out damaging the one before it. So this is just huge, and because Trinity Force is giving you more HP, the Sterex Gauge shield, which is going to scale off this bonus HP, is going to make Darius an absolute titan in the top lane. But there is one champion who's going to excel a little bit more in 12.3, and I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on who you think the most broken top laner is going to be in 12.3, and this is Riven. So not only do we have the Gore Drink, Death Stance changes more of Malmortius, we also have the Black Cleaver buffs, so you're getting 5 more attack damage and 5 more ability haste. And even though you're losing 100 HP, this is so worth it because on Black Cleaver now you will have 30 ability haste. This is such a big chunk for Riven, and attack attack damage and ability haste. These are the two big stats for this champion. And remember, all of these attack damage buffs, like I've said, are getting pumped into the new Death Stance passive. So those three items, Gore Drinker, Death Stance, Black Cleaver, they're going to be so OP on Riven. This is why she has to be the #1 top laner for 12.3. So if you did enjoy the countdown, guys, and want us to continue making these to inform you on who the best champions to play are, let us know by leaving a like down below. And also make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of our future daily Season 12 uploads. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the episode.